Before we begin, this video is sponsored by Sleeve Chief. You can find good quality accessories to make your deck and gear look good. Get card protector sleeves with artworks of all your favorite archetypes and cards for the main and extra deck. There's extraordinary border sleeves, and they've got you covered with deck boxes, playmats, and dice as well. Head on over to Sleeve Chief's website through my affiliate link in the description box below and use my code SHADOW at checkout to get 5% off your entire order. Let's begin. Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about hand traps. I wanted to do the hand trap tier list post the 250th YCSs so we can also take a look at the deck lists, at the frequency at which the hand traps were played in those lists. And for this particular format right now, we don't really know when the ban list is dropping, and we might have YCS Philadelphia still under this ban list. So I think it's cool to talk about hand traps, and I really want to hear your thoughts as well, because right now you can play pretty much what you want: board breakers, hand traps, a mixture of everything, which probably is the best decision to evenly spread the board breaks and the hand traps among your main and side deck. So I really want to hear your thoughts, so make sure to leave them in the comments down below when you're done watching this tier list. As for the tiers, I have the new specific tier that I added a couple tier lists ago because I think it's really useful and I think I'm gonna be keeping it. So let's just go ahead and get started. For the first icon here, I decided to choose Vishtios, and the Magnumite is representing all of them. So any kind of Vishtio package you might run in your deck is what I'm trying to showcase with this picture right here. So I genuinely think Vishtios are quite decent. They might be even like bottom of good just because they are that useful in the side deck. I don't exactly recommend main decking them because you don't really know which decks you're going to be up against, and they are obviously not good in every single scenario, but they're really nice against branded. If you get rid of the Albion from graveyard before they go to the end phase, or if you hit a target from a branded in red or whatever it may be, or expulsion, it's really nice. I just probably wouldn't recommend waiting for the targets because they might banish them. Like the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare might just go to the banish pile and they summon it back with this expulsion from there, so it's not ideal. But Vishtios are really nice against Methmec as well. And of course, any kind of Dragon Link version or Vishtio control deck, of course, is utilizing them, so I really wanted to talk about them. And I think this should go at the top of the decent slot. They are useful in the side deck. If you have enough space and if you know you're in that kind of meta where you really could use them, if you know there's a lot of Methmec, branded, all of these decks running around, I would suggest utilizing Vishtios because they are still really nice cards. They are just not as useful as they used to be. So there's that when it comes to this this picture. Moving on to the next one, we have the Sneaky Sea, and I think it should go straight up in bruh. Like, it's just not that great. It literally gets summoned and then it would have to remain on the field until the end phase to be flipped face up, and that's realistically not happening. Like, a Rise card can deal with it. There are so many different options for you to be able to deal with this card, I think, and it just makes it completely unworthy, which is like sad for a new C card, but it's not that great. Then we have Ash, and I think Ash should go in goated. I genuinely think Ash impermanence might even go above it, and I think Gamma should go here as well. Now this might be like controversial because like putting this in goated is literally saying like you have to play this or like it's insanely busted. It's not what I'm saying. I just genuinely think these cards right now are very strong, and if you have enough space, you should probably dedicate it to these cards, which you probably have enough space for that. Because Gamma, for example, you don't have to main deck it, but it's really useful if you look at a deck like Sprite, which can play Emergency Teleport as well. If you look at a deck like Branded, Kashtira, again, Sprite is utilizing it also for the hand trap aspect of Gamma. You have decks like Marinces, you have decks like Springans. Like, if you look at the 250th YCS, so many decks played it because it's insanely useful if you want to have like a Branded Fusion resolve, if you want to use it in Methmec to make sure your stuff resolves. It's not just the hand traps, it's not just the hand trap, it's literally like a protection for you, and that's why I really, really like it. And I think it is worth the driver, although it is really annoying. I just genuinely think Gamma is really useful right now. I would recommend you using it. And as for the other cards, Impermanence is just insanely generic, and it's great as a 6th card. It's great to set to make sure to make a column pretty much unutilizable. And as for Ash, like, it's just so broken against Branded, and as much as it pains me to say that Ash overall is not exactly the most impactful hand trap if you compare it to something like Nibiru or even Gamma that removes the bodies, I still believe that in a diverse meta you should have your hands on generic hand traps. And with Ash, you know for a fact you're going to be able to hit at least something in every single strategy you go up against if you decide to main deck it. But that's probably for decks like Marinces or maybe Methmag that like play a lot of hand traps. And as for the other decks, you can just side it. Like, no one is saying you have to main deck Ash, although it feels kind of weird to put it in the side deck, but I think that's not a bad idea at all. You can just put it in against the matchup you really know it's going to be useful in. So I don't know, in my opinion, Ash should go up there, and the other two as well. So make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. And as for the other cards, we have Bell, and I think Ghost Bell is quite good. It might go like top of decent, maybe bottom of good. I think it's useful against Branded, of course. It's useful against Labyrinth as well. So if you have enough space and if you are expecting those decks, you probably should play it. It's also not bad against like Revolt, maybe, you know, Chai Brigade Sprite is becoming a thing again. It's not bad against Super Factorial. So against specific things, again, if that's the kind of meta you're expecting, you probably should be siding Bell, even though there are some hand traps that might be a tiny bit better, but it's still quite generic. And I don't know, I don't think it's bad. Like I said, you know, I'm putting it in the good tier, even though it might not be as impactful. So then we have Contact Z, and I don't know, I genuinely think it's not worth it. I don't see people citing this. You know, if I look ahead, I don't exactly expect this card to be in people's decks, just because like at the beginning we all thought it's going to be nice against Kashira and Branded, which it is to an extent, but Kashira can just tribute over it. Branded can utilize the Sprint, the Iron Dash Dragon to get rid of it, and it just makes it almost you going minus by using this card if your opponent knows how to deal with it, because usually, at least in my opinion, cards like these come with this surprise factor, you know, when you use them. But the second people say, okay, this card exists, that's how I should counter it, then they prepare. And I still think that people are going to be prepared at this point in time if you use this card against them. So I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's not horrible, you might cite it, but like, I don't think it's exactly worth it. Moving on to the next card, I think Chaos Hunter should go in the specific tier, and it's probably like the most perfect card to put in this tier. It's not the greatest. However, in specific decks, like for example in Sprite, as a mannequin cat target for to play around D-Shifter, it's really, really nice. And there's other decks as well that we saw siding this card. And I just think like, if you know your deck is going to lose to Shifter, like Runic variants maybe sided this, like I said, Sprite can side this, you should have a card that's going to protect you. There's nothing wrong with that. And specifically in Sprite, when you can summon it out easily, and like Runic, which really loses to Shifter, I think it's great. You know, your side deck doesn't need to be like built only to counter the other decks, especially if your main deck seems almost strong enough, you could say. With Runic cards, they do seem like that. You know, with Runic cards, you literally have a negate, a pop, a spell trap removal built into your engine. So I think at least you can dedicate some side deck slots to cards like these, which are going to make sure your cards, you know, go through and like they don't get banished and your strategy is not hindered. So I think this is like the perfect card to put in the specific category, like I said, and I don't think it's bad. It's just not useful in every single strategy. So ranking it like this in a tier list, That's why I wanted to separate it, so you don't think it should be played in like literally every single list, because it probably shouldn't. It's not that great against Kashtira. Comparing this to something like Lancia, I would choose Lancia, but it's nice, you know, in specific strategies. And speaking of Lancia, I think Lancia is quite good. You know, I think we should put it in good. Good or decent. But the thing with Lancia is that Lancia is always going to prevent. So if you are playing the kind of strategy where you would much rather just throw Lancia at a Kashtira player and prevent their turn from happening, I would prefer this if I know I'm playing a deck that can like win, you know, next turn, or at least put up a board good enough for your opponent to not be able to contend with it. So I think it's nice, but it's not exactly for every single deck, because sometimes just the turn skip is not enough. And speaking of turn skips, like Draw is this weird card that a lot of people like sometimes don't differentiate in which decks it's going to be useful. Like sometimes it's just not strong in a deck like a trap deck or something, because you cannot OTK, you cannot win 100% on the following turn. So why take a turn from them when on the following turn they're gonna probably win anyway, because you just stopped them, you didn't take away their resources. So even though Joel seems very strong, I don't want to put it higher than like maybe here. It's not goated. It doesn't feel like this staple that should be played in every single strategy, because not every single strategy, like I said, is going to have enough use from it. At least that's the way I view it, because it's weird. Like Draw is just, it's a very weird card. It literally tilts me sometimes, because in a very diverse meta, I don't think you should necessarily be leaning towards Draw, just because you don't know what you're going to be facing. So like, I don't know, it's really, really impactful, because at the moment, a lot of decks are searching. Like Kashtira, if you stop them in the correct hand, or branded even to an extent, or like, of course, Runic and stuff like that. I don't know, it's nice, but it still feels a bit weird, because you don't know what you're going to be facing. So I really want you to think about Draw as like, specific to the point where if you know you're going to be going up against these kinds of strategies, you should probably play it. And if not, I would stray away from it, because it's not the most generic thing to use, if that makes sense. So it's just weird. Joel is weird. It's always been weird, but these are my thoughts on it. Then we have DD Crow. And DD Crow is just not worth it. It's not a bad hand trap, it's just not useful at all right now. Tier is literally nowhere to be seen, and it was really nice against that deck, so it's just here. And then we have Shifter. Shifter is also kind of specific. Like you could put it here, but I don't want to like disrespect it, because I think it's strong. So I'll put it like here, because the best deck can utilize it. Like decks like Flunder can utilize it, and if your deck doesn't get hurt by it in a diverse meta, there's a lot of decks probably that you're able to find that can benefit off of this card, because it's really nice against Runic variants and stuff like that. It even not really hurts branded, but it just makes them play weirdly, and you want your opponent to be playing weirdly and to counter them and like throw them off their game and make them a little confused as to what they should be doing if they're not specifically prepared to face Shifter. So I think the card is good, as much as I dislike it. You know, it really doesn't matter what I think about it. It's good. It's a very strong card right now. Then we have Dogwood. I don't know, like I don't think time cards are worth it. Like a lot of times your strategy is going to have like a built-in time card. You know, like, I don't know, like Flunder used to have, like Sprite always had with the red resonator. Branded has Masquerade and stuff like that. You have Runic variants where you can just gain life points with the Moonin, I think. And just a lot of times, like any deck that can play Gaga Cowboy or things like that, they are probably going to side it. So if you have like in-engine cards, you probably shouldn't quote-unquote waste spots to play cards like these. Then we have Skullmeister. I don't know, like, not worth it, I guess. like all of these right here, they could even go in bruh. Like this can go in bruh, this can go in bruh. It's just not useful. And then this one, it just feels like it's not worth it. Then we have Moonlit Show, and I think it should go in decent. I'm not a huge fan of it because it seems a bit too specific for me, but I understand if it's utilized in a deck that plays a ton of hand traps. I just wouldn't like pick this particular one over something else. So if I'm playing a lot of them, sure. If not, it feels way too specific, which I'll put it in decent, not in specific, because it's still not bad. Like you can main it, side it, whatever, if you play a ton of other ones. And speaking of this one, we can talk about Veiler as well. I think Veiler is like decent. It could even go above Bishios, again, if you're playing a lot of hand traps. Or maybe like it could go over here. Probably over here. Yeah, like I genuinely don't think cards like these should be played because you only have as much space as you can dedicate to your tech cards, to your, like you only have like 12 to maybe 15 flex spots if your deck can afford to play them. And then if you literally waste the slots by playing Impermanence, Ash, maybe even Draw, or like some going second cards like Evenly or Kurikara or book cards, you run out of space. So I don't want to put these cards higher to like encourage you to play them over something else that might prove itself to be more useful. They are not as impactful, and I think you need impactful cards to be able to contend, or something that's really, really generic. And I get that Veiler is generic, but I still wouldn't choose it over Ash or even Gamma. But again, these are just my thoughts and opinions. Yeah, I think I'm quite satisfied with all of these placements so far. I think Nibiru is really good. It should go quite high. Like, it was literally one of the most played hand traps at the 250th YCSs. If you're not maining it, you probably should be siding it. It's going to be useful against many different strategies. A lot of them are going to play into Nibiru. Kashtira, of course, we know all of the weird shenanigans surrounding Kashtira, the full zone lock, the no zone lock, going into Rice Heart to play around Nibiru, playing into Kaijus consequentially, and all of that. Like, you can do whatever you want, but I would suggest using Nibiru still, even if you're not main decking it, because you don't know what your opponent is thinking. And if you get them, if they play into it and you can use it, why not use it? Branded plays into it at times, and there's other decks, of course, present in the meta, and a lot of them are going to play into Nibiru, especially if they don't really expect it. So I like it. I think it's really strong. And like I said, I prefer very impactful hand traps. So this one for sure is. We have Ogre, and I don't think Ogre is worth it. I'll play it. I'll place it here. Maybe if a lot of adventure stuff was more popular, just like it seemed, I don't know, a couple weeks back, there was the Plunder Adventure variant. You can play Adventure in Kashtira. You have some piles. Against those, of course, Ogre is really strong, like we saw in like last year's format when Adventure was like literally insane. But other than that, I don't know, using Ogre on like a birth or something just doesn't feel worth running it. If you have other cards, like I said, Lancia to completely prevent their turn, or other much more impactful and useful hand traps in other matchups as well. So if we were in a format where Adventure is everywhere, or a deck that gets hurt by Ogre is like literally everywhere and everyone's playing it, then sure, but we are not. And in a specific, diverse, weird format, I don't think cards like these should really be played. And then together with that, of course, Phantasme, like, no, it's not useful. It literally wouldn't be useful. I don't think there's a single deck that Phantasme would really, really prove itself useful against. Again, like a weird pile deck maybe, but that's it. So we could even put it in, bruh. We can put it here. Even lower, maybe. We can put it here. And then this one could go lower. Cherries is, again, just like Chaos Hunter, the poster child of being specific. It's weird because a lot of times, even if you get rid of the opponent's resources by banishing them, they might have a way of like playing with them or returning them somehow, so it's not even as impactful. And besides that, also, you don't really have enough space to play all of the targets in a diverse meta, so I don't think cherries should be played, but I wanted to mention it because it is specific. And then we have Retaliating Sea. I don't know, I'll just place this in not worth it, literally next to the other C card. Not great. Shifter does the job much better, and Retaliating Sea just does not seem worth even thinking about. So as for my closing thoughts and going over the tier list once more, I'm genuinely quite satisfied. I think this tier list makes sense, and I'm satisfied with how it looks like, and that's pretty much what it is. Like, you can do whatever you want, is maybe what the closing thoughts could be. You can really adjust to your personal meta, because locals are different from regionals, and they are for sure different from a very big event like a YCS. And if you go to an event like this, or any event actually, you should probably think to yourself, which matchups should I be respecting? And then when you think about those matchups, I think this tier list can come in handy for you to decide which hand traps are useful enough to utilize against the top strategies, or the strategies that you probably should expect at your events. So I don't know, let me know what you think. Like I said, I think it's looking cool, but again, it's just my thoughts, so I would very gladly read you guys' comments and thoughts in the comments down below. So make sure to like the video, of course, if you did like it. Make sure to check out all the social media, sub, ding the notification bell, check out Sleeve Chief, and don't forget to use my code SHADOW if you're shopping there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.